I'm a victims' rights attorney, and I can provide better legal representation to victims when I work with victim advocates because teamwork makes the dream work. And I know that sounds really silly, but what I mean by that is we each need to acknowledge that no one of us can provide everything to a victim that they need, and the best way to provide victim services is to do it collaboratively.
I'm a victim advocate, and I can provide better advocacy services to victims when I work with victims' rights attorneys because it creates a clearer picture of our distinct supporting roles and provides victims with expert knowledge of the legal processes that is beyond the scope of my abilities.
I am a victims' rights attorney, and I can provide better legal representation to victims when I work with victim advocates because I can make sure that I am thorough throughout the case, that all details are met, and that all questions of the victim are answered.
I am a victim advocate and I can provide better advocacy services to victims when I work with victims' rights attorneys because advocates and attorneys fill different roles for victims who are trying to recover from trauma. Advocates have the training to provide essential support for victims, while an attorney can help guide a victim through the legal process. Working together, an advocate and an attorney can provide the foundation victims need to start rebuilding their lives.
Advocates and attorneys working together to support victims of crime. Victims' rights attorneys and victim advocates are two types of professionals that are available to offer assistance to victims of crime throughout justice processes, including throughout criminal justice. This can be before a report is made to law enforcement, after a report has been made, throughout any criminal investigation, charging, or trial, during sentencing, and even post-conviction. In this video, we will discuss the roles of victim advocates and victims' rights attorneys and take a closer look at how these professionals can work together to support survivors in the aftermath of crime.
Victim advocates are reliable, supportive, and empathetic.
Victim advocates are helpful, knowledgeable, and compassionate.
Victim advocates are professionals who have been trained to provide information, support, and referrals to victims of crime. Victim advocates come to this work with varying personal, professional, and educational backgrounds and may work with victims in a number of contexts. Some victim advocates are system-based advocates, which generally speaking means that they are employed by the government, by a prosecutor's office, by law enforcement, by corrections. Some victim advocates are community-based advocates who are primarily employed by nonprofit organizations. All victim advocates share the goal of empowering survivors and providing them with the information and assistance they need so they can make choices about their rights and engagement with the justice systems that are best for them. System-based advocates often have ready access to case status and information, have the ability to teach and interact regularly with other system actors such as prosecutors, can serve as victims' rights experts for prosecutors, are often in the best position to prevent or quickly address victims' rights violations, and are in a good position to facilitate the resolution of issues between victims and system actors, such as law enforcement and the prosecution. Even though system-based advocates maintain the confidentiality of victim communications to the highest extent possible within their role, victim communications with system-based advocates are often subject to some mandatory disclosure obligations, and it is important for system-based advocates to have conversations with victims about the limits on their ability to keep victims' information private. Community-based advocates often have more time that they are able to spend with a victim than their system-based counterparts, are available to assist before, during, and after a criminal case, regardless of whether the crime is ever reported, may be able to assist victims of a broader range of crime types, are available to provide support in non-criminal settings, and can assist with facilitating communication between the victim and system actors. Victim communications with community-based advocates are often protected by strong privacy obligations. Community-based advocates should also discuss any limits they may have on their ability to keep victims' information private.
I'm a victim rights attorney, and victim advocates are key to empowering victims because they can provide support to the victim where I can't, and they're there along the journey even outside of the legal parts of the case.
I am a victim rights attorney, and victim advocates are key to empowering victims because while I'm going to focus on the legal issues that address the or impact the victim. My victim advocate can focus on ensuring that the trauma of the experience is being taken into consideration as we address those legal and services that they may need.
I'm a victim's rights attorney, and it can be important to work with victim advocates when representing a survivor because the advocate is going to bring things to the table that you will not. And the things that they will bring to the table often will be things that you never even considered. And so collaboration with victim advocates is the best way to provide trauma-responsive, victim-centered services to survivors.
Victim advocates leverage a wide range of skills and expertise when offering services and support to victims of crime. They are skilled at holding trauma-informed space for survivors, assisting with safety planning, explaining victims' rights and options, breaking down barriers to understanding how justice systems work, helping identify resources for basic necessities such as hygiene products, food, clothing, housing, and transportation assistance, valuing the individual and providing emotional support, helping to establish expectations and answer questions about upcoming appointments and court proceedings, and connecting survivors with other resources in the community with warm referrals. Every victim of crime deserves to have access to advocates who can offer these services, and when their case is moving through criminal justice, they deserve access to both community-based and system-based advocates.
Victim rights attorneys are dedicated, compassionate, and crucial.
Victims' rights attorneys are driven, fearless, and compassionate.
Victims' rights attorneys are lawyers who provide legal representation and legal advice to victims of crime as they navigate criminal justice. Victims' rights attorneys are not prosecutors. A prosecutor's job is to represent the government in a criminal case. Victims' rights attorneys represent the victim directly and advocate on behalf of what the victim wants. Communications between victims and their attorneys are privileged, which means that their privacy is protected by very strong legal protections. Victims' rights attorneys can file motions and take other legal steps to enforce a victim's rights in court. Some victims' rights attorneys work at nonprofits dedicated to serving crime victims and providing victims' rights representation. Other attorneys provide the same type of representation on an individual basis through a private practice not affiliated with a nonprofit organization. All victims' rights attorneys share the goal of empowering survivors and providing them with legal advice and legal representation to help ensure that victims' rights are respected in the justice system and that the victim's voice is heard.
I'm a victim advocate, and it can be important to work with victims' rights attorneys because it helps survivors on the path to self-determination.
I am a victim advocate, and it can be important to work with victim rights attorneys because no one can do the work of supporting survivors alone. We all need each other.
Victims' rights attorneys' skills include their knowledge of the law, their ability to use the court system to seek enforcement of rights, and their professional license to provide legal advice to victims of crime. Victims' rights attorneys can help victims understand the nuances of their rights and advise them of the best course of action in their particular circumstances. Assist in interfacing with law enforcement or the prosecution, file legal motions, and use other tools to prevent violations of victims' rights or seek remedies for violations when they occur. As the United States Supreme Court has observed in other contexts, the right to be heard would be, in many cases, of little avail if it did not comprehend the right to be heard by counsel. Even the intelligent and educated layman has small and sometimes no skill in the science of law. The law can be complicated, and access to an attorney who can assist with asserting and seeking enforcement of victims' rights can be important for many survivors.
I am a victim advocate, and victim rights attorneys are key to empowering survivors because ensuring victims know all their rights and options helps victims have voice in what is best in their lives and situations.
I am a victim advocate, and victims' rights attorneys are key to empowering survivors because they elevate the legal needs of survivors by advocating tirelessly to ensure that their rights are recognized and respected at every stage.
Because victims' rights attorneys and victim advocates have complementary strengths and skills, Victims benefit when they work together to assist individual survivors and improve victims' experiences in the criminal justice system more broadly. Central to ensuring that victims' rights are meaningful are three distinct yet related legal concepts: rights compliance, rights assertion, and rights enforcement. Rights compliance happens when the system is working to honor and respect all of victims' rights. Processes are in place to ensure that victims know and understand that they have rights, know how to request them, and that these requests are being properly documented, and that rights are actually being afforded and victims are benefiting from them. One key aspect of compliance is that the system works to improve itself when gaps or failures are found. Victims' rights attorneys and victim advocates of all types assist with compliance by pointing out when the system is not working properly and helping to ensure that efforts are made to promptly fix problems when they are discovered. Rights assertion is the act of asking for rights. Sometimes these asks are made of the prosecutor or of a system-based advocate, and both advocates and attorneys can assist a survivor with making this type of request. And sometimes these asks are made more formally in court, when a victim needs to involve the court system to protect their rights. Rights enforcement happens when courts and other adjudicative bodies issue orders to ensure that victims' legal rights are respected. Victims' rights attorneys can assist victims with seeking enforcement of their rights by filing motions and using other legal tools. Seeking enforcement of rights in courts is something victim advocates generally cannot do, as it involves the practice of law. Victims' rights attorneys are a crucial resource for survivors who would like legal representation and assistance with asserting and seeking enforcement of their rights in court.
I am a victims' rights attorney, and I can provide better legal representation to victims when I work with a victim advocate, because my victim advocate will ensure that my victim is present, is aware of the issues that are taking place, and has the surrounding support that is important to them, but may not be the primary focus of the legal issues that I need to address with them.
I am a victim advocate, and being able to provide survivors with referrals to victims' rights attorneys is important because they are dedicated solely to prioritizing the needs of victims throughout the process.
I am a victim advocate, and being able to provide survivors with referrals to victim rights attorneys is important because survivors are worthy and deserving of full participation in the process.
I'm a victims' rights attorney, and I can provide better legal representation to victims when I work with victim advocates because we're able to work together to meet all of the needs of the victims. We're able to have more frequent contact, answer questions throughout the criminal process, and just provide overall more effective legal services to the victims.
When victims of crime interact with the criminal justice system, victims' rights attorneys and victim advocates are valuable resources who can provide support, information, and legal and non-legal advocacy to support survivors through the process. Victim advocates and attorneys can work together to help facilitate victim safety and ensure victims' voices are heard and their rights are respected inside and outside the courtroom. Together, victim advocates and victims' rights attorneys can
empower victims,
Partner to provide wraparound care for survivor healing,
create a team to empower and support the victim,
advocate for the rights of crime victims, ensuring that they and their rights are respected and upheld,
Uphold the rights of crime victims, make sure victims have a meaningful role in the criminal justice process, and help play an important role in the healing of victims.
Provide safe, trauma-informed support.
Empower and uplift survivors to confidently exercise their rights throughout the process.
Together, victim advocates and victims' rights attorneys can really change things for victims. We can ensure that victims receive trauma-responsive care and outstanding legal services. And in other words, we can minimize the secondary trauma the victims experience in the criminal justice process and make sure that their experience is as healing as possible.